Apple is going to fire Tim Cook. Hold on a second, I don't mean to say this for clicks. There is legitimately right now an active campaign going on to convince Apple's board of directors to fire Tim Cook as Apple's current CEO and replace him with someone else, someone better. I know for years it seemed like Tim Cook was sort of the darling of Wall Street, but the times, they are a-changing, and a lot of people think Tim Cook is just a terrible current CEO for Apple, and someone else needs to come in. Let me break down the main reasons why Tim Cook could be getting the boot sooner than later, and also give a big thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. All right, so I already know this video is going to ruffle a few feathers, but hear me out because there is a legitimate discussion going on right now in the Apple community and from some activist shareholders that Tim Cook needs to be removed, that he has caused a number of major issues that has really caused Apple to stumble in some really big ways. And I've got a couple of examples here I want to point out. The first one is one that was a good story that turned out to be pretty bad, and that was a couple of years ago with the launch of app tracking transparency. Remember when Apple made this really big move on privacy? They were gonna make sure that no apps or bad guys were snooping or spying on you, and they were gonna make iOS super safe and super secure, and kind of the unofficial, official main target of app tracking transparency was, of course, Mark Zuckerberg and the folks over at Facebook, because they were always seen as the slimy, seedy social network that were always tracking you and selling your info and targeting you with ads. And this was sort of a direct offensive move from Apple against them. And there was this big war for a while about Apple versus Facebook. It was good versus evil. Tim was good, Mark Zuckerberg was bad, and everything seemed like it was going really well. But over the last couple of years, that really hasn't been the story. In fact, Facebook, or I guess now Meta, has rebranded themselves. Mark Zuckerberg is somehow now a cooler CEO, and also now you have Meta really being known not as a slimy sort of Facebook social network boomer, website anymore, but it is known for being a real innovator, both in terms of VR and AR functionalities. And these days, it's really Meta that's seen as sort of leading sort of the tech when it comes to real-world AI, both in terms of the products and also the talent, as they continue to poach hundreds at this point, if not maybe, thousands maybe, of Apple's top executives. But also when we're talking about departures, it's really Tim Cook who is to blame for the massive departure of not just Johnny Ive, Apple's longtime chief design officer, but also like the entire world-renowned Apple design team that kind of has left since Johnny Ive departed Apple, and many of them have gone to work for him at his new design company. You have basically Tim Cook driving away the entire design team, from inside sources saying, because kind of what we always thought, he's so focused and way more focused on the numbers and spreadsheets and the stock and the sales than he is on the reverence of design and functionality. And many are saying that it's Tim Cook to blame why Apple is sort of missing their world-class design team, and maybe why their designs of their products aren't as exciting as they used to be. The second major reason that a lot of people want Tim Cook out as CEO is that a lot of Apple's major controversies, both the public PR nightmares and the legal controversies, have happened under Tim Cook. Apple Intelligence is kind of the most recent issue. I mean, not just the class action lawsuit for false advertising, but kind of the broken promises, the delays. We've heard that a lot of issues have come because Tim Cook didn't prioritize AI, and Apple fell further and further behind. And even, before the whole AI craze started, Siri has been, for years now, dare I say decades, a major problem and liability for Apple. And Apple kind of rested on their laurels, and they thought they were better than they were, and they waited and waited and waited, and now they're not only late to the AI party, but Apple Intelligence is just a huge mess. And even Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg kind of agrees, this is Tim Cook's fault. We also can't forget Apple's legal troubles under Tim Cook have been worth noting. Not only is there currently still file an antitrust suit against Apple, but more specifically, Apple has been found guilty in some, I don't want to say intimidation, but some unfair practices towards their developers. Remember, there have been multiple lawsuits on Apple kind of giving favor to some developers over others, all of the App Store issues, and again, it was at Tim Cook's direction a lot of these very controversial and some would say illegal things happened. And again, that happened and kind of painted Apple in a bad and unfair light when Tim Cook was actively CEO calling the shots. And again, let me just say for the record that not everything Tim Cook has done during his tenure at Apple has been a bad thing. Again, app tracking transparency, a very nice thing. But the problem with that feature is that it kind of only works between apps and doesn't work on other devices. And also, kind of more importantly, doesn't really help you on the broader World Wide Web. Because no matter what device you're using these days, and no matter what you're doing online, you are being snooped on and spied on, which is why it is imperative these days that you've got a VPN securing your connection, keeping your browsing online anonymous, safe, and secure. And if you're looking for the best VPN, my go-to recommendation, that of course is only one option, and that is Surfshark VPN. And look, I could go on and on about how much I love Surfshark and how I have it on all my devices, and I love the peace of mind it gives me, but here's kind of the main stuff you need to know. First off, Surfshark VPN is super easy to get set up. Literally a couple of clicks on your computer, a couple of taps on your phone or your tablet, and you're good to go. They've got over 3,200 servers around the world for blazing fast connections, no matter where you are in the world or where you want to virtually appear like you are in the world. And you're covered on an unlimited number of devices, all your Apple devices, your Android devices, Mac, PC. Of course, there are other benefits here, like unlocking region-locked content, getting cheaper access to flights and other tickets by being in a different location around the world. Just having a VPN is so good. There's literally no downside. Plus, with Surfshark, you've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain. And if you're looking for a special deal, you can head to my special link down below, surfshark.com/AppleCircle, and you're actually going to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN totally for free. So learn more, check it out for yourself today, get that connection online safe and secure by using Surfshark VPN on all your devices. Again, link to get started and special offer right down below. And the third big reason, and I don't mean to sort of bring this up like a broken record, though I've talked about this before, is the stock performance of Apple under Tim Cook. Now, many would look at the charts and go, wow, Tim Cook has made this company way more valuable than Steve Jobs ever did. But the critics would argue that all Tim Cook did was inherit a very healthy, vibrant company under Steve Jobs and basically just milk the innovation that Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive created for all they were worth. Many would argue that Apple under Tim Cook really hasn't shown us all that much innovation, that a lot of these things just sort of were naturally going to progress to that form, that a lot of these things are sort of in development before Steve Jobs passed away, and that some of the bigger swings that Apple has made under Tim Cook haven't actually been all that successful. Vision Pro has sort of been the most famous example. Something entirely developed under Tim Cook has kind of been seen as a colossal $3,500 failure and flop. And again, I'm not sure how much truth there is to that entire argument, but I think it is safe to say that there was a pretty big runway, sort of a blueprint for Apple that Tim Cook inherited from Steve Jobs. And while Tim Cook was definitely a great numbers guy and he found ways to make money and introduce new things, innovation that happened at Apple under Tim Cook, I'm not sure is something that I would say actually was a thing. I could think of a lot of words to describe Apple these days, ecosystem, some nice integrations, some safe bets, and some obvious choices, but innovative and exciting and groundbreaking, I'm not sure I would use those words. Now, will Apple's board decide to kick Tim Cook to the curb and fire him? I give that a very, very slim chance of actually happening. But do I think there are discussions being had about Tim Cook stepping down because of his older age and retiring and then sort of moving on and then getting a new CEO in the door? I definitely think that is happening. Maybe it's happening a little bit sooner than Tim would like. Maybe they're pressuring him a bit, but I definitely think those calls for a new Apple CEO are growing louder and louder, and it just makes more sense that 2026 could be a very very logical year that Tim Cook decides to step away and someone new becomes Apple's CEO. And who the next person could be a wild card, could be the likely candidate of John Turnus. I guess time will tell on who takes that new spot. So I'm curious for you guys, what are your thoughts on this? Who would you like to see as Apple's next CEO? Do you think Tim Cook should get the boot? Do you think he's been good for Apple, bad for Apple, net positive, net negative? Drop a comment down below, let me know. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld, and I'll see ya in the next one.